If I had to list a few things that were innately American, then I would probably think of things like hot dogs, George W. Bush, apple pie, Las Vegas and Yosemite. But when you really start thinking a little bit more deeply about it, there's all manner of institutions that are American as well, like Route 66, and the annual road trip pretty much spawned as a result of Route 66 and roads like it, with the boom in motels in the 1940s and 1950s. Road tripping became an institution by itself. Pile the kids into the family hauler, sling the dog in there as well, a bunch of snacks, their iPods, DVDs, if they still use those these days, anything to keep them entertained en route, beach balls, beach towels, a couple of deck chairs maybe, a barbecue so you can cook something en route. All of these things have become a tradition. Every year to this day, a lot of Americans won't fly anywhere. They'll simply pack everything into an SUV and then go to a beach somewhere. Before the SUV became ridiculously popular in the 1990s, the humble station wagon fulfilled that role, and it fulfilled that role for 40 years. You know, the likes of the original Chevrolet Suburban, for instance, in the 1940s, was one of the first vehicles that was built for that particular role. By the time you got to the early 1970s, there were some fantastic station wagons, and they had become larger and larger and larger. Then it all died away. You know, the last of Ford's great body-on-frame full-size station wagons ended around 1990 or so. And with General Motors, that all came to an end in 1996. In fact, theirs was the last of the old body-on-frame station wagons to go out of production. I'm referring, of course, to the B-body. I'm Darren Walker, and this is Auto Atlantica. This isn't just any old B-body. It's my B-body, in particular a 1996 Buick Roadmaster. This final generation of the B-body, which had been in existence as a platform since 1925, and Buick's variants from 1935, had undergone about a dozen major engineering changes over the years until this final iteration appeared in 1991. It appeared with compatriots from Chevrolet and Oldsmobile. It's worth getting the engines out of the way now. These all had V8s, of course, monumental V8s. In 1991 it began with a 5-litre L03 engine which packed just 170 horsepower, but it sounded fantastic. A year later that was replaced by the L05, and that packed an extra 10 horsepower no less. But it was in 1994 when the transmission was changed from a hydraulic based system to an electronic one, when the engine was changed for the LT1, and that suddenly made these cars extremely desirable. The LT1, of course, was straight out of the Corvette, although it was detuned in this form to produce 260 horsepower. That engine was also used in the Pontiac Trans Am. It was used in the Camaro SS at the time of the day as well. It was also used in the Impala SS. I've had this one now for about 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years, and I've had some work done to it which we'll talk about. This is not a perfect car by any means. Cosmetically it's average. Thankfully there's no rust, or very little rust actually, but it could do with a paint job. It could do with some more of this plastic covering. We're going to get this wrapped. The wooden parts itself are fine, but we're going to get this edging wrapped. It's missing a few trim pieces, and some trim pieces are a bit bent as well, which need to be sorted out. The 1996 is probably the most coveted year of all, because these cars were all badged collector's editions for that year only. This is the final year of any large body on frame American station wagon, synonymous with the road trip, that was ever built. And that's precisely why I've got it. Like I say, I've had this car now for about 3 years. I bought it from Virginia. I did look around for a good one. I didn't particularly want one that was from Ohio because the frames can be rotten. So I wanted to get a decent one, but I didn't want to pay through the nose for one either. You know, even in this condition, these cars with a mileage like this of 120,000, this one's got 124 on it now, they can fetch upwards of $10,000, $12,000, $15,000. And in fact, if you go for a particularly low mileage example that is pretty much in mint condition, these cars now fetch well over $30,000, and they are increasing in value, especially these LT1 powered cars. They also become more attractive the more equipment you've got on them. Now, leather was in fact an option, although most of the cars that you'll find do have leather. If you went for the limited model, that had different leather seats entirely. It was a bit more of a premium trim. You had a bit extra wood in the limited model, and the limited model also had heated seats, and it had electric seats on both sides. On this one, it's just got the driver's side, which is electric, but everything else is pretty much electric. Now, up until 1994, the cars were bedecked with wood, and it had a different dashboard with full instrumentation, including a rev counter. But then for 1994, curiously, they simplified the dashboard. So you just had the fuel gauge, the temperature gauge, and the speedometer. The electronic climate control, though, also doubled as a multifunction computer. And within that, you could also turn it into a ref counter, believe it or not, although you have to go through a weird and wonderful process in order to do that. Now, I thought that the post-1994 cars' interiors looked a lot cheaper than the earlier cars, to be perfectly honest. There we go. Picked this car up from Virginia. It was actually the governor of Virginia's daughter's car initially, such as that Providence, which is rather nice. And we bought it from the second owner, and it had a number of issues going on with it, not least the fuel system, which is why I only paid $5,000 for it. It was running when we went down there, but by the time that we got it up here, it wasn't. And so what we had to do was get that completely cleaned out, and that was quite a bit of work to get that sorted out. Involved in that were 8 new AC Delco injectors, which were a pretty penny. So along with the fuel system, the other thing that I had to then turn my attention to was the electrical system and the air suspension. The electrical system, there was a short, and we started noticing that occasionally we just couldn't get the damn thing to start, including a car show that we went to. We took the dogs to, got back in the car, I couldn't get it to start. It did fire up eventually, but the previous owner had put a battery isolator on it, and he did warn me that the air compressor would periodically, once the isolator was off, the air compressor kept coming on by itself periodically, and it would run the battery down. So he warned me to make sure that that isolator was on. Well, turned out it was the isolator that was causing all the problems, including the starting issue. And when we took that isolator off, the problem with the compressor disappeared miraculously. I had new air lines installed, and it turned out that the air shocks at the back had been fitted on the wrong way round. So the jiggly ride, which was very noticeable in the back, suddenly disappeared as well. The other thing I had last year was a couple of the hoses were leaking up front, so we've had new hoses put in, and I've had new brakes on as well and some new brake lines. So mechanically we're getting there now, and it's practically tip top. So I'm much more confident in getting in the car and being able to go places without any issues. Now these cars, the final B-body derivatives, which began production in 1991, ended in 1996. This is a final year car. It says collector's edition on the badge. They were the ones to get, and especially after 1994 when they fitted the LT1 motor, which was a detuned motor out of the Corvette. Those are particularly going up in value now. They built 200,000 of these Roadmasters over those 5 years. A quarter of them are wagons, and it's the wagon which is most desirable. It's got the look of the Caprice and the Oldsmobile Custom Cruiser, and it's the Oldsmobile which is the rarest of all. That only was built as a wagon. Everything works. On the interior, you've got these anodized black panels for the switches. The driver's side ones always start flaking badly. Mine is no exception. It's not too bad. It's not the worst, but it's not great. I do have a replacement that I'm going to fit in there as well. I've also got a new old stock radio, because this one is looking a little bit worn and it's missing a button. So we're going to fit that this summer. And the check engine light's on, and we think that's something to do with just the emissions. It's not causing any problems. But yeah, but other than that, everything's fine. This particular car has leather. Now, leather was an option. The base cars came with this sort of like suede sort of velour look, which could look a little bit ratty after a while. The leather is much more attractive. It's got a raft of options, this one has. I'm not going to list them all out. I've got the codes for them all. But the big one was the towing pack, and the towing pack obviously has the tow hitch, and it's also got an upgraded coolant system as well. With the fan is electronic and mechanical, and that's to cope with the 5,000 pounds rated towing that's in this thing. So you could easily put quite a large caravan on the back and it will tow it quite happily. That is your ultimate sort of road trip vehicle right there. But we've now got it to the point where it's just driving beautifully. When we bought this car in Virginia, we took our 3 dogs that we had at the time, and they're all rescues. Our old guy, Jake, who was the closest to me, he absolutely loved this thing. He was all over it like a rash. So the dogs love it already. Just look at these seats. I mean, our living room is not as comfortable as this. Now, sadly, we lost Jake to lymphoma back in just after Thanksgiving of 2022. And so I called this car Jake in his memory. I subscribed to the Lincoln Highway, which is another famous road trip road. And so I've got Lincoln Highway plates with Jake's name on on those plates. So he's always with us, and so I don't normally call my cars names, but we called this one Jake in his memory. This is as comfortable as you can possibly get. The seats are so squidgy, you just sink into them like an armchair, and the ride is so floaty that my wife loves this car. I mean, she has back problems with nerve pain, and she has no issues with comfort in this car, despite the fact that it doesn't have heated seats. She doesn't need it, those heated seats in this thing. So if you're going to go for one of these, I think To be honest with you, any of the three engines is nice enough. It's going to give you that nice floaty ride. It's just that the LT1 is the most powerful. It also has the electronic gearbox as well, as opposed to the hydraulic one previously. Although again, as long as they're serviced properly, these gearboxes, they're all a 4-speed auto, and you're not going to have many problems with them. As I've said, the wagons tend to be more sought after than the sedans, but whether you've got a Caprice or a custom cruiser or a Roadmaster, they've all got different dashboard layouts. So after my mini road trip this afternoon, which included some camera problems actually, I'm now returned home, and for me that's what this car embodies. I have always found the American road trip the epitome of a vacation. You can go where you want, you are not tied to any schedule, you can see whatever you want to see. Everything's fair game on a road trip. You've got total flexibility. You know, when you're in an aircraft, the world disappears below you. When you are in a car, it opens up before you. And that is the beauty of this kind of activity. And it's why it's so popular. The traditional full-sized body-on-frame station wagon, I think, just embodies it. It encapsulates the whole romance of a road trip, an American road trip, completely. And this being the final year, no more so perhaps than this. You know, the B body grew bigger and bigger and bigger as the decades went by, and in 1977 it was reduced quite dramatically, 10-12 inches or so, but then for the final iteration it grew again in length. And this is just a gargantuan piece of kit for me. It is fantastic, it sounds fantastic, it rides fantastic. Sure, it's not the best built thing in the world, but that's not what this car is about. This car is all about comfort and commodious space, and I love it. I'm Darren, and this is Auto Atlantica.